the whole thing was just a huge battle from start to finish, and it's up against some of the best local players.
Welcome to the Common Unity Podcast.
In order for us to feel like we're a part of a community, we have to feel like other people understand us.
There's more to our lives and our future than what we ever could imagine.
We've got Sam Adams here. Thank you so much for being on the show, Sam. I just want to start out by saying that I watched your interview with my great friends Ben and Lando at Poker Media Australia, and I'm really impressed with the stuff that they were able to extract from you. And it was so inspiring that I wanted to get you on here so that I could pick your brain a little bit to get a little deeper in some of those mindset things and some habits and some behavioral things that really have got you to where you are today. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to share you with the rest of the audience. So first of all, tell us how the hell you're feeling.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, it was an amazing week and a great finish to not only the year, but to the season, which went for more than a year. Yeah, I was hoping for a good finish, but I could have never imagined how it actually went down.
So you mentioned you're feeling good, but could we get a bit more descriptive?
Well, I'm feeling, I actually feel fine. I feel fresh. I didn't actually feel that tired after the week was over, despite being on like 4 hours sleep pretty much every night. And, still all sinking in, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel good. I feel great.
Yeah. So it's sinking in. So that to me suggests that it's almost a bit surreal. Like it hasn't sunk in. It's like, oh, I'm in this elevated sense of emotion. It feels good, but I'm not quite sure how else to express it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I've had a lot of deep runs in other tournaments lately, and I tended to have things go wrong in the bigger spots. So I was able to be up there and Player of the Series, Player of the Year due to consistency. But every time I've been, in a spot where it's like I can get this massive payday, then it just tends to go wrong. And so to not only have it go right once, but twice on stream in the space of a few days, it's amazing. It's not something I could have. It's not something I could have scripted.
Yeah, look, I mean, I obviously, for people listening, they know that I'm a poker player and I have been for 13 years. And I just know how many times you really have to fail before you succeed. And it's one of those things that people who are following don't see. They don't see how many times you bubble or you get rivet on a 2% chance or all those things. And so one thing that is quite fascinating, and from my personal experience, is that, well, you're the only one who really knows how much shit you had to pull yourself through to get to where you are today. And that's why I think that there's this surreal feeling that's hard to explain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel that if you just keep on, if you have good fundamentals in your game when it comes to poker, and you just keep on doing the same stuff, the results are likely to come eventually. And I can honestly say the amount of times I'd been on big final tables and then finished 7th or 5th or stuff like that, and a lot of people would be in my ear telling me what I did wrong and stuff like that, when I actually didn't feel I did anything wrong. I just sort of ran bad at the wrong time, and I changed nothing after any of those failures. I changed nothing because I already thought that what I'd done was correct. And because like every time, like let's say if a few times where maybe I made a light call and lost a lot of my chips, but I had a good reason for it. Or maybe I bluffed in a spot where someone had the nuts, but I felt I had a good reason for it. I didn't then go away and beat myself up and go, oh, why did I do that? I knew why I did it. And I thought it was the right decision at the time. And it turned out I was up against a hand I didn't want to be up against. But would I be up against that same hand next time? Probably not. I still thought they were okay players. And so I just kept on doing what I was doing. And then I had a great week. So it was nice.
Yeah. When you have those runs where other people are you have a result where it's maybe quite unhappy or unpleasant rather, and other people then come in and chime in and give you all their 2 cents, and it's very difficult because they're not the one who is in your seat. They're not the one who has the history with a certain player or for whatever reason. So how do you manage through that and be able to respectfully hear other people's opinions and not let it alter you too much, not let it take you down, but also, you managed to kind of let it, there's a barrier there. How have you kept that up and kept pushing through that?
Well, to be honest, I'm always happy to take on board anything that other people say, but I always am more interested in my own views. So I'm willing to like take on board other people's suggestions and advice, but I'll I can work through it all myself in my own time and then decide whether it's valid. And I'm not saying that I don't sometimes make mistakes. There have been times where I can't think of an example, but there have been times where I've done something and later on I've gone like, yeah, probably wasn't the best move. So I'm not like just saying I'm right all the time. No, but if I'm going to say I'm wrong, I would need there to be a good reason, not just based on the result. And likewise, if I made a play that resulted in me winning chips, and then someone pointed out to me that actually that might have been a bit questionable, and I go through and think about it, and there've been times where that's been the case as well, where maybe I've won a big pot where it was maybe not the greatest play, and maybe I had better options. I'm not just going to go, oh well, it worked, so what a great play. No, if it was the wrong play, then I'll not do it next time, even if it worked. So, and I think that's important to keep into perspective. Like, it's not the results you've had that matters. What's more important is the likelihood of getting good results in the future. And so that means sort of just having a game that's likely to produce those results.
It's really difficult in poker, isn't it? Because you could make all the right moves and lose, and all the wrong moves and win. And so my question to you is, when you say that, you try and keep that other people's opinions at bay, and you just focus on your own intuition. I know from a social construct, let's say, that we actually need other people's feedback in order to progress in our lives in all senses, because if we're making mistakes, we're sort of almost too stupid on our own to navigate through life. So is there anyone, you don't have to name them out, but do you have anyone that you really value their opinion? And sometimes if they do give you criticism or your constructive criticism, it really hits you.
There's a lot of people whose opinions I value. However, there's no one who I would blindly follow what they say without further analysis. So yeah, I'll list, there's probably a dozen or more people whose opinion I would value at a very high level. But yeah, I would never take any of it as gospel from anyone. Yeah.
I really like that because there's so much imperfect information going on. I think that it's important to say, well, at this particular moment, I think that person might have been right and I can learn from that. But then at another moment, that same person may actually have an opinion, but it's just not as valid, right? So is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so many variables, like in not just in poker, but if we're talking about poker, there's so many variables, and what they're saying might be accurate in a lot of cases, but it may not be considering all the same variables that I am. Like that, someone might say in a certain hand, in a certain spot, a hand is a fold, but I might have played it due to the table dynamics, knowing that a certain player is going to fold almost all of their hands, or like just slightly different things where they might be technically correct that, oh well, if you've got this many big blinds and they've got this many big blinds, then you're supposed to do this. But then there's other variables at play where if you've been sitting there for a long time, you might know that, the player in the big blind is overfolding and therefore it is a raise, or you might know that they're calling any two, therefore, even though you've got a hand where you're meant to be raising to put them under pressure, they're just going to call anyway, and you're going to get yourself in bad spots. So therefore, maybe you just let them go for a little while and wait until you actually have a good hand so that you can punish the fact they're overcalling. So there's a lot of different variables to factor in, rather than just the amount of big blinds in play, and which is in some cases, when I receive advice, is the main things that people will be talking about, without factoring in the tendencies of the individual players.
Yeah, And look, for the people listening who actually aren't poker players, there's a lot of dialogue we're using here that may be a completely foreign language. But basically what Sam's saying is that he's really following into his intuition of the psychology and the, I guess, the instinct that's involved in poker, because there's a lot of mathematical sides and fundamental sides. And you mentioned, Sam, in the podcast with Ben and Lando, that you're not really one to follow as much of the fundamentals, the GTO stuff, the theory stuff. But your instinct, man, that's really risen to the top here over all this, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I do base my play, my decisions, kind of the opposite way of thinking to GTO. Like, I don't know if I'm completely correct in this because I haven't studied GTO, but to my understanding, GTO is largely about knowing what hand you have and what percentage of the time you're supposed to do each action, depending on how many big blinds the effective stack is. It's kind of like thinking from the perspective of what you have and keeping what you have completely balanced. So it's hard for other people to come up with a counter strategy to that. Whereas when I play, I'm focused firstly on what I think my opponent is likely to have in a given situation based on what they've done. Whether I think they're likely to be overfolding, whether I think that they're looking to really take the game back to me. So I have that in my mind before I even think about what I have and what I should do. In fact, in a lot of spots where someone has opened a pot or 3-bet or whatever, I sometimes will pause for 10 seconds thinking before I've even looked at my cards. And I'm not doing that to waste time. I'm doing that because I want to get, and I just want to have a clear thought in my own mind of what I think is likely happening so that I have an unbiased opinion before I look at my cards. I don't want to look at my cards, see that I've got some sort of marginal hand that's not too bad, but not great, and then talk myself into playing or not playing or whatever. I would rather have some idea in my head of what a range looks like, which doesn't take me too long, thankfully. Otherwise, I'd be wasting everyone's time, especially sometimes I look down and I've got like a 2-7 off and I'm going to fold no matter what. So I don't want to waste everyone's time, but I do want to get some idea of what kind of range I'm likely facing here before I look at my own hand, which is not a strategy that I've deliberately come up with. It's just what has organically evolved over time. And it's just how I do things. And so because I've never read a poker book, I've never done a poker course, I've kind of just come up with my own strategies. And I think in most cases, I've come up with similar solutions to what people who have taken courses and stuff. I think I've come up with similar answers to the same questions, but I've just come about it in a different way, and I've got different processes.
Yeah, very interesting. I think we recall that as exploitative play, and it certainly is a style that can really, really dominate in a field like the Australian field. So I think it's fascinating, man. And yeah, so moving on, I wanted to. So I read your Facebook post, which really expressed a lot of gratitude for the people who has helped you along the way. And I wanted to ask you, what other types of motivations would you say has helped you carry you through some of the most difficult times, and who are here now still through everything to cheer you on, or maybe they're not people, maybe they're mindsets, or maybe it's a spiritual guidance. Like, what other motivations has really dragged you through this?
It's a tough one to answer. I think I'm just very, very competitive. I see when I'm in any sort of a competition, my desire to win, I usually can't think of much else. So for example, going into the final table of the Goliath, I had nothing to eat the entire day. Now, this is probably not what anyone would recommend in terms of preparation for a massive final table.
I do recommend that for some people, but you go ahead first.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't eat anything. I woke up, I had time to get some food, but I wasn't hungry. I wasn't going to force feed myself. And I went there, and by the time I started playing, I never again thought about eating. So it's not like I was sitting there hungry and I didn't have time. It didn't even occur to me. So I played that entire final table. When I won the final table, I immediately I was already getting blinded out in another tournament. So I jumped up there. I was getting blinded out in the main event as well. They had to come and look for me to come and get the the winner's photo, because as soon as I won, I basically shook hands, said, cool, thanks, yep, nice. And then I ducked off because I knew I was getting blinded out in another tournament. And so I didn't finish up until I got knocked out of the Drakakis that night at about 1 a.m. And that was the first time that I realized, like, oh yeah, I haven't eaten today. And then I went and got some McDonald's, because that was the only thing that was open at that time. Not that I really want to eat that, but options limited. But yeah, I think for me, I just, when I'm in the heat of battle, I just can't think of anything else. It's just all about trying to get the win. And yeah.
So okay, so coming back to the idea of the motivation, you mentioned that it's your competitive spirit that helps you stay in this state of what we call in psychology flow, or you could call it in the zone. It's where, you know, you're in that space where you don't think about anything else, or your mind and eyes are on the prize, right?
Yeah.
Let's dig a little deeper, if you don't mind. Where does that competitive spirit come from?
I'm really not sure. I think it's always been there in one way or another. I can even think back to like being in, I mean, yeah, I was playing in a darts team when I was like 17, and I started off not being very good in that, but then I just became better. When I was 18, I had a job just working in a call center, but every Thursday we'd go out as an office and we'd play pool, and I was terrible at it. I ended up buying a pool table. I had it in my little 1-bedroom apartment, and I'd practice every day until I became really good at pool, which I'm no longer that good at because I hardly played in the last decade or so. But I had no real reason for it. I was just competitive, and I didn't like that I was going out. We were like having drinks every Thursday, and I sucked at it. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm just going to get really good at this then. So I guess I just have a real competitive streak. I want to win.
Yeah, I mean, when I've psychoanalyzed myself, I always wondered, like, you know, I'm a competitive person. Like, I play soccer, I play poker, any sort of other game, video game. I just want to win. And I've nailed my own thing down to the fact that I have 4 brothers, and I just grew up in a competitive family. We were always fighting for whether it be attention from our parents, or for, you know, food on the table, or video games, anything. And I reckon that's what's really fueled me and my competitive spirit. And if you were my client, I would continue digging down to figure that out, but we're not going to go down that road because we don't have time.
Yes. There's not something I've given much thought to, so I just don't have the answers. All I know is that I don't know the reasons. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of my main jobs to find out reasons with people, but I won't prod you on a public thing.
Sure.
The thing I was going to say before about, like, I actually do recommend that some people don't eat, depending on who they are, because when you fast, I don't know if you've ever intentionally fasted before. I've had many periods where I only have water for 40 hours and black coffee because it doesn't break your fast. But basically, from a instinctual point of view, you actually you become more alert, because I guess, like, years and years ago, if we didn't have an abundance of food, you would have to be more alert to find food. So the hungrier you got, the more clear you actually became in order to find food. So that's kind of one of the quick ways of explaining that. And, you know, the other thing is that information is also food to the brain. So you'll probably find that if you wanted to fast, if you're doing something else that's so engaging, it actually, the information of it, or the interaction of, you know, hanging out with someone is so deep, you won't think about food at all because you're processing information. So I actually do, when people are trying to hyper focus in poker, the last thing you want is to be trying to process a 200-gram rump steak and some chips. That's just going to deplete your energy levels. So but it sounds like you just naturally do it. But
yeah, it's quite interesting. I don't always do it, but it's like with the main event one, I did have breakfast, but it was only a light breakfast. But then I didn't eat for the rest of the day, including when we had a half-hour dinner break. It was.
Are you going to share with us what you had for breakfast? Because I know you shared with me.
Sure thing. I had pancakes.
Oh, yes. Nice. Now that's something I wouldn't recommend, but hey, look, it's got you the results, so why not, right? Each to their own.
That was the only thing I could think of that I would eat. Like I couldn't imagine eating like a steak or bacon and eggs or anything like that. I felt that it was a good idea for me to eat, and that was the only thing I could think of where I'm like, well, I could eat some pancakes with, they had like a strawberry sauce or something to put on. I thought, yeah, I could eat some of those, so I went and ate that.
Yeah, nice. It sounds like you were still in that like zone that you just were like, oh, look, I'll eat whatever comes, and it's, you know, it's not your main priority. Your main priority, and even when you're not at the table, it's on the prize.
I didn't really want to eat, but I felt, even though I won the Goliath, I felt like I should have forced myself to eat something that morning. You're saying maybe I shouldn't, but that's what I was thinking at the time. Is I know that I'd played the Goliath, I'd won it on no food, but I was thinking like, shouldn't really do that, but okay, it happened. And then for the main event, I was kind of like, well, really need to force myself. So I actually, this time I'm like, just eat pancakes. So I did, but I didn't want to.
I have an image of you with all your trophies and just like a whole bunch of pancakes and McDonald's. Like, is that what happens now at home for you this week? Is it, or do you sleep with your trophies? Like, what's going on there?
No. I still haven't put them in the cabinet yet. I should do that soon.
Next to the, go ahead. Sorry.
I remember they didn't stand up very well on the poker table, so I've got to make sure that they'll actually not fall down, because I don't want them to, if they fall, because they're quite tall. If they fall down,
I would know. I've got one just for people listening as a little subtle brag. Yeah. It's a problem to have, isn't it, Sam?
Yeah.
So let's move on to like a little bit of mindset stuff. As people know, I'm all about mindset, prep, mental stamina, meditation, visualizations. Do you do any of that, or like, do you have any prep, or tell us a bit about that?
I don't have any like hard prep that I do. I don't do meditation or any of that. I do for the, like in the lead up to APT, I was eating very clean, and I did actually take a couple of weeks break from poker altogether. But again, that wasn't necessarily by design. It was partly just, I knew I had 7 days coming up where I was going to play 30 tournaments or whatever it was. And I thought, well, I just don't really feel like overdoing it with more poker. And in terms of the clean eating, that's just, I try to eat fairly clean most of the time, especially when I know during a poker series, it can be all over the place. Like I wouldn't normally eat stuff like McDonald's. That's pretty much bottom of my range for like meal choices. But
what does clean eating mean to you? Because it means different things for different people.
Okay. Well, I've actually, I'm not a big cooker of food, but I've been getting like microwave meals, not necessarily you foods, but some of the other ones that are not frozen, put it in the fridge. Some of them are really good, and you know exactly high protein content, low calories, protein shakes, protein bars, and not much else really.
Right.
So yes, I was eating pretty clean, not going to restaurants and not really cooking other stuff, because restaurants, you don't know what they're going to put in it. I like eating at restaurants, but in the lead up to that I wasn't. So I think it was pretty clean eating stuff. I would have been in a calorie deficit, I'd say, and exercise, but not over the top exercise. I wasn't really like going out and pushing hard in the lead up to it or anything, but just my normal sort of routine. And yeah, I mean, and at this stage, I haven't had alcohol for quite a long time, but not because I won't drink, but just because I just haven't. So yeah, I guess that's all I could say. Other than that, I don't really do any like visualization or anything like that. I tend, my way of thinking about things, I don't tend to be negative or positive. I try to be realistic and just focus on the likelihood of things. So, for example, coming into the Player of the Year chase, I had assessed that I had an 85 to 90% chance of winning. That's what I believed. So I wasn't going to go in and say, yep, 100% you're going to win. And I wasn't going to like downplay it either by saying, oh, everyone's got a good chance of catching me. I felt going in that it was me versus Cooper, and for anyone else was pretty much going to be a miracle. But then Kyle won an event on the first day, and then I was like, oh shit, okay, here we go. Because Kyle's a very good player, very capable as well. And in the end, the amount of points that Kyle got to was enough where I did need to have some results to stay in the lead. And beforehand, I was saying that I thought 7,000 points would probably be around about what a winning total would be. And Cooper ended up just below 7,000 points. In the end, I went quite a bit past that because I had just a dream run. But if I'd had a shocker and I just bricked everything, I would have finished third. So, so Cooper had a decent result, and Kyle had a blinder. He still finished third, but he had an absolute blinder from where he started that final comp from. So yeah, I mean, I don't do any of the like positive visualization though. I don't find that helpful. For me personally, I prefer to just look at the situation and reassess the numbers. I was actually constantly reassessing what I thought my percentage chance was of winning going into a given day as well. Like going into
so sorry to chime in here. You said that you're not necessarily on the positive mindset or negative mindset. You're just realistic. Like, what does that mean? That's interesting.
What I mean is, if I think that I've got a 90% chance of winning something, I'll say that I think I have a 90% chance of winning something. If I think that I've got a 10% chance of winning something, I will say that I think I've got a 10% chance. So I don't kind of go in and say, oh yeah, I'm going to get this. No. And if it's all against me, I don't go in and say, oh yeah, well, can't win now. I'll just go like, okay, I think I've got about a 10% chance. So let's see if we can get this 10% chance to happen. And likewise, if I think I've got a 90% chance of winning something, I don't go, yep, I've got it locked up. I go 90% is pretty good, but 10% has happened. So let's do everything possible to try and prevent that 10% from happening.
So you keep it as like analytical as possible rather than emotional then, because that's what it sounds like. So you're just thinking, okay, this is my chance. And then if something happens that changes those variables, then I just change from 90% to 60%. Then I just need to change my strategy or something. So if that's the case, like, how do you manage the tricky thing called human emotions?
I try not to have that when I'm competing. I try to take that out of the equation. And I mean, like every night when I was getting home from playing poker or getting to the hotel from playing poker, I was going in and I was working out all the numbers as well. So I had on my phone, I knew exactly what my lead was against each person. Then I started tracking for player of the series as well when I realized that I was in a good spot for that. So I was doing like an hour of working out all this other stuff after the fact as well. I guess when I'm doing all of that, I don't really let emotions come into it. I just try. I don't feel like it's helpful, and I feel that I can keep that out of my thinking until a job is done. And then once a job's finished, if I've won, then I feel great, and if I've lost, I don't beat myself up over that either. Though, like it might be, I've had plenty of times as well where I've given it everything and I've fallen short. And, I'll be disappointed for a little while, but usually within half an hour or so, I'll be back to normal, like cool. So I try not to let emotions, I just.
Do you think part of that could be like bankroll management too? Because emotions are highly, in poker anyway, they're usually heavily attached to the idea that like a certain amount of money is up for grabs. And I mean, if I only had $1,000 to my name, if I put it all in one tournament, it'd be very difficult to avoid the emotion. But if I only played a $1 buy-in tournament, then it's easy to be unemotional about it.
No, I 100% agree with that. And I see it all the time. And I actually give a lot of people advice in the poker scene. And one thing I'm always telling people is play within your bankroll. Because firstly, like if you've got a skill edge, if you don't go broke, you're pretty much guaranteed to make money. You just have to be able to fund yourself to continue playing. But also, if you're playing games that are too big for your bankroll, you run the risk of being scared money. And if you're scared money, even if you've got a skill edge over your opponents, if they're not scared to lose and you are, you've given up that edge. So yeah, that is a big thing as well. Now I'm obviously I'm comfortably rolled to play in these events. So I prefer to keep it that way. I've never gone and played 10Ks or really big tournaments because I don't really want to take a 10K hit off one tournament, and I don't want to be in a situation where a bubble means more to me than it means to other people. Whereas the games I play, I'm not scared on the bubble. And if I was to brick an entire series where I played everything, it's not really going to impact me as much as it might impact some other people. So I do think it's very, very important to play well within your bankroll.
Mm. Mm. So coming to the idea of the fact that you are the player of the year, and you also, I noticed actually quite a bit of a smoke there. How did that feel to hear that?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it's like that win means more to me than the Goliath and the main event win, because it's been more than a year and a half in the making. It's been a huge battle. I've led from start to finish, but I've had a few close calls though. Like during the second or third series, Mike Maddox was getting very close, but then I managed to pull away. And then going into this last one, Cooper Smout and Kyle Matthews were not super close, but they were close. I mean, there was a spot on the second day of this recent APT where I got knocked out of the mix max a few spots off the money, and I went upstairs to play in the 6-max shootout, and Cooper was still in, and I'd heard that Cooper was the chip leader. If Cooper wins that event, he's then, I think, 20 points behind me. And so I'm like, this sucks. Like I just got a real cooler where I flop trips against another guy who flop trips for me to get out in, I think, 16th when top 10 get points. And then, so I'm out, I get nothing. Cooper's got all these chips. And I'm like, I was really hoping for me to be the one to get that early result, just to put it to rest, so I could just focus on poker without worrying about player of the year. And I'm like, now we're going to be like neck and neck with 5 days to go. Anything can happen there. But then, fortunately for me and unfortunately for Cooper, he got 5th, which means he closed the gap a little bit, but I think he was still about, I don't remember now, 500 points behind or something. And then when we were playing the shootout that evening, I knocked him out only a few spots off the money and I go on to get 3rd, which means I actually got all the points that he had just gained on me. I actually got slightly more than that back, and just sort of went from there. But yeah, so it's been the whole thing was just a huge battle from start to finish, and it's up against some of the best local players like Cooper, Kyle, Mike Maddox are all fantastic players who are all there to chase. So that one means just a lot more to me than the other ones, even though they all paid roughly the same.
Yeah, there's a sense of prestigeness to that player of the year one, because it's the long haul. It's the every little tournament that you went multi-tabled and grinded it, and every single little battle in every individual tournament. And and that's what makes it feel so satisfying. What do you think it is that's really made you rise above all of those players, not just the ones you mentioned, but all of the other hundreds who have really aspired to play for the player of the year?
Look, I've been chasing points in player of the series races for about 2.5 years now. So I do feel that I've got pretty solid strategies. I can't go into it in too much detail, only because there's going to be other points races, and I don't really.
Man, you can share the secrets with us.
I don't want to. Like, I'd feel really stupid if I gave away a couple of ideas that someone later on used to beat me in one of these points chases.
That's okay, but we can identify that there was a strategy, right? So because I would imagine there'd be a lot of players out there who would just aimlessly think, oh, if I just play all the same tournaments that he's doing, then I should have the same chance. But no, you're saying that there's something more going on, and of course you don't have to share it. That's your strategy, but there's something going on, which is the main key.
No, there are deep strategies involved in multi-tabling. Sorry, I just can't go into too much detail, but it's like,
we almost got something there, but yeah, that's okay.
I mean, there's obviously some ways that make more sense. If you've got 4 tournaments happening at the same time, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different options that you can choose in terms of how you want to play those tournaments, and some make more sense than others. Yeah, and I think what I'm doing is working.
Nice. Well, obviously, I mean, you can't really look at the result and deny that, can you?
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I'm certainly impressed. I mean, I obviously I play in some of those tournaments, not all of them, and certainly not the volume that you play. But I know how tough it can be. And even when you mentioned I think it was with Cooper, like you thought you were just going to have it home from the start of the last series, but it's just
not home, nine, but I did think 85 to 90%.
Right. But even then, it's like some people think that's pretty sweet, so they become complacent. And it's like even if you have a 9-1 chip lead on someone heads up, it's not over till it's over. And if there's one key thing I've learned from this game, it's you never ever give up, no matter what, whether you're the biggest stack or the shortest stack. You never ever give up until it's
even
over.
Even going into the second to last day, I think my lead was something close to 2,000 points. And it was at a situation where pretty much Cooper would need to win something. Cooper would probably need to like win a tournament on each day and me to not cash in anything to beat me. And I still did not consider it over. I considered it to be way less than 1% chance that I lose, like maybe somewhere between 1 in 500 to 1 in 1,000. But as long as there was that chance, I still had to keep on pushing because it could still happen. It could still happen. So even at that time, when I thought I'm going to win, close to, 99.8 to 99.9% of the time, I was still searching for that last result just to make sure that it was definite. And I was still keeping an eye on Cooper and Kyle. Like, where are they? Do they have chips in this tournament? How's it going over there? Because it wasn't over yet, even though it was an extremely high chance. I couldn't count it as over until it actually was. Going into the last day, though, that was the first time I said that's over. But now my attention was on trying to lock up player of the series. I had a big lead in player of the series, but I'd worked out that Jesse Stanley pretty much would need, if I got a min cash in the main, which I was pretty close to, then Jesse Stanley either needed to win the rotation or the beast to pass me, and nobody else could catch me in that one. So I was still, when I was playing the main event, even though he had to win one of those, I was still very aware and not playing as many hands as normal to get into the money first, even though the bubble normally wouldn't bother me too much. It was a, I don't know, $900 or $1,100 bubble or something like that. I don't know. But I played that a little bit harder just because I wanted to make sure that I had player of the series locked up as well, even though it required him to actually win one of those tournaments. And at that stage, I wasn't even sure if he was there or not. But yeah, so I always try to think of it in terms of all of that. Try and
it sounds pretty exciting. I mean, the whole journey. I mean, it's the drama that you sign up for, right? Like it's you enjoy the process. Yeah, that's so cool, man.
I actually do, and like the player of the series chases have actually reignited a passion for poker in me. I was kind of bored with poker, and I remember a QPC series nearly 3 years ago where, I love QPC now and I play it all the time, but for that one, I showed up, I played the 1K, I got out, I then took the next day off, I was just chilling. I showed up the next day only because I'd already won a $450 ticket, which I don't think I would have played otherwise. I ended up coming second or third in that tournament for 10,000. And then I looked at the points leaderboards in that player of the series, which I'd shown no interest in at all, and saw how many points people had. I felt that if I'd actually played the whole series, I would have had a huge chance. Like if I'd gotten that second place in the high roller and then gotten like one or two other results. So for the next series, I showed up with an aim to actually win. I didn't win, but I got a couple of results and I finished second equal and got an extra $2.5 grand for my troubles. And from then on, it's been the main thing I've set out to do. And I've had how many? I think 5 player of the series titles that I've won across all leagues that have it, and then a bunch of near misses, a bunch of like top 5s where I've gotten some extra money as well, and then heaps of other times where I've just missed the top 5 because that happens as well, and that's sort of become my thing. And so it's nice to actually win a couple of big tournaments as well, because I think I'm viewed largely as a player of the series specialist, and then I just get a lot of consistent results without a big score.
Yeah, I mean, those results all stacked up in the one thing. I mean, if you did the math on that, it'd be like tens of thousands to one to have that all fall into place and all the stars align in one go. So it is pretty amazing. It's something that's
Right.
we've seen before in the whole world of poker, with people winning back-to-back things and whatnot. But to
Yep.
have it happen to you is quite amazing within the poker industry. I mean, we haven't seen it in a long time, and I've been in this industry for 13 years. So very impressive. And I wanted to ask you, what sort of, well, actually I have two questions. Like, one is, well, what now? What happens now? I mean, because we know that you enjoyed the drama of it, and now there's a sense of surreal feeling and almost maybe relief that it's all over, but then now you're not in it. So the cessation of this entire journey for you, does it create any hunger to keep going and get into the next one? Or are you happy just chilling for a bit, or what happens now?
No, I pretty much, I don't, like, I'm pretty much just going to continue with what I was going to do anyway. I may not even play that much poker next year. I was planning on doing a bit of travel, and that may or may not see me at the poker table. So yeah, I probably won't be playing a great deal of poker in Australia next year, because I'm not even sure if I will be here. And even though like a great result like this definitely makes me want to keep going more, but my plan was already in place, and I've been working towards that with these COVID restrictions that make it harder. So I'm going to continue doing what I was going to do anyway. The game will wait for me. The game will still be here when I want to play again. And yeah, I mean, I kind of always just do my own thing, and I'm just going to continue doing that. It was a great week, and I look forward to when I do get to play in those series again. But whether that's immediately or if I have to wait a year or two, I don't know.
And I've noticed, I mean, I've been coaching poker and mindset things for many years in the poker industry. And it's only really been in the last year that I've started to see a lot more coaches and things pop up, which I think is fantastic, because I don't actually see that as competition for me. I think I welcome that. And I think that's great, because there's a lot of people out there trying to better themselves. And I welcome that. I think that's awesome. So will we ever see you do that?
I do get asked often, even before this weekend. Since this weekend, I've been asked heaps, but even before that, I get asked, and I'm always open to the idea, and I always think about it, but I would need to put in a decent amount of work to actually think of how to teach what I do. I'm not sure how much of it is easy to teach and how much isn't, because I do kind of have my own way of thinking about things. And then also I would have to consider carefully how much this will affect me in tournaments later. If my way of thinking about things is common knowledge, even if players like good players who decide not to adopt what I do, but just to learn what I'm doing to help create counter strategies to play specifically against me, even that would be, would cost me money potentially. So I'd have to think about all of that. But yeah, I do get asked, and I do always think about it. I just haven't done anything with that yet.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I suppose it's like the Karate Kid thing. At some stage, you end up becoming the sensei, and I'm just wondering if this sort of period of success has prompted any of that for you. So interesting. Let me ask you a last question here, so we can leave people with a bit of inspiration. I know there's a lot of poker players out there who really, really put in a lot of effort, and actually people who aren't poker players, and maybe they're trying to do things in business or their family life, or they're trying to achieve whatever. Like, you've been through a lot of hard times to get here. I know, you don't even need to tell me, because I've experienced it myself in poker. It's not easy to do. You've had a lot of consistent success, but now it's all come to the surface in one hit. What sort of things would you say to someone who's within their journey, and maybe they're struggling, or maybe they're looking for a bit of advice from someone who's the ideal right now?
Okay. Well, I guess one of the keys we touched on earlier, which I would say is bankroll management. I think if you've got an edge on the poker table specifically, you're pretty much guaranteed to make money over a large enough amount of hands. So if you can make sure that you don't go broke before you reach that amount of hands, the upswing is coming. The upswing will come if you're doing everything fundamentally correct. So bankroll management is incredibly important, as well as things like table selection. If you are like a pretty good player, but not like the top level yet, and you're still on your journey, then saving up $2,500 and playing a $2,500 buy-in tournament, that's probably not the best strategy for you. But maybe instead, if you've got, let's say, the same $2,500 that you're comfortable putting to risk over the course of a poker series, maybe play a bunch of $200 and $100 tournaments where you're playing against, mainly recreational players who are there to have a good night and who view winning poker as like, oh, that's a bonus, but otherwise they're going to have a few beers and have some fun. Well, your edge has to be bigger against those sorts of fields. And then maybe the same person with that $2,500 can do one bullet in the main event as that's their shot. And then the other $1,900 spread amongst some of the smaller games. I think that would make a lot more sense. And I guess one other thing that I've noticed from a lot of conversations I've had with people is they need to be less results orientated. I mean, the amount of times I've heard someone who, they've won two pub game tournaments in the space of a week, and they're like, oh, I'm just playing the best poker I've played in my life. I'll be like, oh, that's great. And I'll ask them why. And when they elaborate on it, there's no real reason other than the fact that they've won two tournaments. Or likewise, I'll get someone who they're on a really bad run and they're like, oh, I need to rethink my game and every, I'm just losing. It's just terrible. And I'll ask them for specifics. I'll ask them, and they might tell me specific hands where, oh, I opened and somebody shoved all in and I called with ace queen and they had kings and I should have known better. And it turns out that the effective stack was like 8 big blinds or something. I'll be like, well, no, there's nothing wrong with that call. That's a standard call. You just happen to be up against a bigger hand. So I think that would be the other thing, is not being too results orientated, because a lot of people, they beat themselves up because the person had a better hand, or they just think they're the man because they won a tournament, when in reality, the truth is probably somewhere well in between.
I can see the coach coming out of you.
Okay. Well,
this is it.
I guess I already do that stuff then. I just don't do it as a coach.
No, I think it's great, man. And look, to summarize it in simple terms, it sounds like what you're saying to people is to have a bit of patience for the journey. Don't get too carried away if you have a win. And if you're having losses, don't get too upset. Stay within your bankroll. So don't jump the gun and buy into something just because you want to, or because you want to rush the journey. Just stick to that low variance, increasing your skill as you go, and be honest with yourself. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, if you do want to try and do poker as your main source of income, you've got to make sure you're financially in a position to do that. I also know some people who, they might quit their job with only a couple of grand to their name because they think they'll run it up. And maybe they will. In some cases they will. But if you don't, then you've got to start from scratch. So it's probably a good idea as well, if you want to go on that journey, to play poker on the side while you have a job, until you have enough money where it's very unlikely that you'll go broke on a downswing, and then do it. So, yeah. But that all comes up with management.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Sam. I think it's been really great to have you on here.
Hey guys, it's your host Brendon Ruby here, mindset coach, counselor, poker coach, and lifestyle entrepreneur. Life can be pretty tough sometimes, so if you're looking for some additional support with your aspirations, goals, dreams, or just someone to talk to, I'm here for you. If you feel like I might not be the right fit for you, I can certainly connect you with someone who is. You deserve to get the most out of your life, so take the first step today and email me at brendonruby@gmail.com. That's BRENDONRUBIE@gmail.com. Or message me through one of my many social media platforms. After all, the best investment you'll ever make is in yourself. Enjoy this week's episode.